Welcome to the deep dive. We know you want to get up to speed quickly, really understand things, but, without that feeling of information overload.
Right.
So today, we're jumping into something I think is really quite fascinating in education. The self-regulated strategy development model. You'll often hear it called SRSD.
Exactly. And we're digging into a really great source for this. It's a review article, actually, from the Educational Psychology Review. Came out September 2024.
Oh, so pretty recent then.
Very. It's by Karen R. Harris, who's a major figure in this area. And the title gives you a good clue. The Self-Regulated Strategy Development Instructional Model. Efficacious theoretical integration, scaling up, challenges, and future research.
Okay. Efficacious theoretical integration. So this isn't just a what is SRSD piece. It sounds like Harris is really getting into the weeds, the thinking behind it.
She is. It's about the foundations.
So our mission here basically is to pull out the absolute must-knows about SRSD's theory, why people say it works so well and what's next for it. Consider this your fast track to understanding this pretty influential educational model.
Precisely. We want to give you that core understanding, save you digging through mountains of research yourself.
All right, let's start at the beginning then. Where did SRSD come from? It sounds like it wasn't just, cooked up overnight.
No, definitely not. The article makes it clear that the initial spark, the first focus, was specifically writing instruction. That's where it started.
Okay.
But what's really interesting is how they built the theoretical base. Harris points out two key processes that were, fundamental.
Two process. All right, what were they?
So the first one was theoretical integration. Sounds a bit academic, but it's basically combining different existing theories about learning.
Ah, okay. So not just sticking to one framework.
Exactly. They pulled strengths from multiple perspectives, made the model richer, more robust than if it just relied on one single idea.
That makes a lot of sense. Often you need different angles for complex stuff like learning. So what was the second process?
The second one is called theoretical triangulation.
Triangulation, like checking from different points.
Pretty much. It means using multiple data sources or different ways of looking at something just to validate an idea. So they didn't just come up with a theory.
They tested it.
Yeah, they looked at it from different angles, maybe through early study results or observing students in different ways to see if the concepts actually held water.
Okay, so it was built carefully, integrating theories, then really checking those ideas with different kinds of evidence. Sounds like a solid foundation.
Absolutely. And the article stresses that the SRSD we see now, it evolved. It came out of this weaving together of theories, looking at early studies, refining it over time, lots of iterations.
Right, it wasn't static, it grew. So, okay, we have this carefully built foundation. What are the core components? What's it actually built on?
Well, the article mentions specific tenets and an overarching principle, though it doesn't list out every single tenet in this review. But the big idea, the central theme, is definitely self-regulation.
Self-regulation. Makes sense.
The core concept is that for effective learning, especially with complex things like writing, students need to actively manage their own learning process.
So things like setting goals for yourself, planning.
Exactly. Goal setting, planning how you'll tackle something, monitoring your own progress as you go, and crucially, reflecting on whether your strategies are actually working.
Okay, that resonates. We all kind of know that feeling when you're actively managing your own learning. It just sticks better. So SRSD is about explicitly teaching kids how to do that.
Precisely. And getting back to the development, it was guided initially by four foundational research questions. These really shaped the model early on.
4 key questions. Do we know what they were trying to figure out? What were those initial puzzles?
The article doesn't list the specific questions themselves, but it does highlight what came out of answering them. The research done to answer those questions basically validated the core ideas.
Okay.
It showed that those tenets and that main principle, the focus on self-regulation, were, on the right track. They were significant.
So early tests backed up the theory. Good sign. Now that's the theory side. But does it actually work in classrooms? What's the evidence like for its effectiveness?
Oh, the evidence is quite strong, actually. The article mentions a sizable body of research, and importantly, it's across multiple countries.
Not just one context, then.
No, which adds weight. And these studies consistently show moderate to large effect sizes.
Moderate to large effect sizes. For people maybe not deep in research lingo, that's pretty good, right? That means it makes a real difference.
It really does, yeah. In education research, those kinds of numbers suggest a very meaningful, noticeable, positive impact on student learning.
Okay. Wow.
And importantly, it's not just limited to writing anymore, even though that was the start. The research shows these positive results pop up in other complex learning areas too.
That is interesting. So it started with writing, but the core ideas work more broadly. What sort of other areas are we talking about? Any examples?
This specific review doesn't list out tons of examples, but the implication is clear. The self-regulation strategies taught by SRSD, they seem adaptable.
Adaptable how?
Well, you can apply them to different subjects that require, complex thinking, problem solving, things like reading comprehension, maybe tackling tricky math problems, even understanding science concepts.
So it's less about just fixing writing and more about giving students tools to learn how to learn complex things.
That's a great way to put it. It equips them with a process,
Yeah.
which makes it seem incredibly valuable, right?
Yeah, definitely. But the article also brings up challenges. It says there are significant challenges in scaling up SRSD instruction. What's holding it back from being used everywhere if it's so effective?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Despite the strong evidence, getting it widely implemented is tough. The article explicitly points to one barrier: paradigm wars.
Paradigm wars. Wow, that sounds intense. What does that mean in education?
Yeah, it refers to those really deeply held, often conflicting beliefs about how kids learn best and how we should teach.
Like phonics versus whole language or direct instruction versus discovery learning, that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
exactly, those kinds of things, different philosophies. So if SRSD doesn't perfectly mesh with the dominant paradigm in a school or district, it can face resistance. People might just be committed to a different way.
Even if the evidence for SRSD is strong.
Right. And the article also mentions other barriers, sort of vaguely, but you can imagine what they might be.
Like needing specific teacher training,
Oh.
resources, time.
All of that. Proper training takes time and money. Ongoing support for teachers is crucial. It might clash with existing curricula or just the practicalities of fitting it into a busy school day across diverse classrooms.
Okay, so it's complex. It's not just is it good, but how do we make it work in the real world with all these other factors? Makes sense. So looking ahead, what does the article suggest for future research? Where does SRSD go from here?
It points to several interesting directions. Researchers will likely keep digging into why it works so well, the specific mechanisms.
Understanding the how.
Exactly. And figuring out the best ways to adapt SRSD for different subjects, different age groups, students with diverse needs. That's a big one. Plus, more research on how to actually overcome those scaling up challenges we just talked about.
Tackling the implementation problem head on.
Right. And maybe looking at how technology could help support SRSD or examining the really long-term impacts on students' overall academic careers.
So the story of SRSD is definitely not over. Still lots to learn and figure out. Okay, let's try and pull this together for everyone listening. We've just gone through this really insightful article on the Self-Regulated Strategy Development Model, SRSD.
Mhm.
We saw how it grew from a focus on writing, built on this careful mix of theories and real-world testing, that theoretical integration and triangulation.
And that core idea of teaching self-regulation.
Yes, empowering students to manage their own learning. And we touched on the strong evidence showing it works, yielding those moderate to large effect sizes, not just in writing, but potentially other complex areas too.
But also acknowledging the real world hurdles those paradigm wars and other practical barriers to getting it into more schools.
So why does this matter for you, listening? Well, understanding SRSD gives you a window into a really powerful, evidence-based way to help students become, frankly, better learners, more independent, more strategic.
Yeah, whether you're an educator, maybe a parent, or just curious about learning, knowing about models like SRSD can genuinely shift how you think about effective teaching and learning strategies.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought to leave you with. Considering how much potential SRSD seems to have for empowering learners, what do you think is the real key to bridging those paradigm wars? How can we get different educational philosophies to maybe meet in the middle so that proven approaches like this actually benefit all learners?
That's a big question. Definitely food for thought.
It is something to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive today.